grant that they have. Part 7 is the Eli Lilly Foundation. The drug makers are devout Christians, and they have a program for clergy and church renewal grants that are very generous. And want to thank our church session, our leaders, to allow me to apply for a sabbatical grant of 3 months and from the Lilly Foundation. And many people helped to shape this grant, but especially Jim Fisher. Would you raise your hand over here, Jim? Jim Fisher and Ron Marshall over here, and Mary Ellen Drusel, who's not here today. Let's thank them. I'm the only one I know that got the grant on the first try. They're very competitive and very difficult, but when you have 3 doctors, all of whom have been a dean or a provost looking over your grant, then you have a little edge there. And it was Mary Ellen Drusel that pointed out the question, what makes your heart sing? It was not something that was in the grant itself. It was a question just in the different literature around it. Well, when I thought of what makes your heart sing, the answer was water. Right off the water. That's what makes my heart sing. So we made a grant entitled Rivers of Living Water. Based on the scripture in John, out of the believer's heart will flow rivers of living water. And renewal being tied to the Holy Spirit, which is what Jesus meant. So let's look at a few images of water right now. Right now we're going to Bali. We're going to do 2 countries today, and then in November we'll talk about some more. We went to Bali, and just look at the beautiful water that we saw over there. There's just so many examples of water in Bali that are incredible. That's an infinity pool looking over Turquoise Bay.
Blue Lagoon.
Blue Lagoon is one of my favorite places. Keep on going. Yeah. Beautiful women in Bali. This is a floating tiki hut. Great concept. And then when you have a waitress that brings you drinks, it's even better. But just beautiful scenes of water there that we enjoyed in many forms. This is a silhouette of a rock near where we stayed, and that's my son right there. That's 25 meters. Goes fast. They had a 25-meter dive and a 50-meter dive off the cliffs, and so we would go back to the kayaking. One of my loves is kayaking, and was able in Bali to do that for many days. To go kayaking would cost about $5 to rent a kayak. We went snorkeling. We went snorkeling as well as kayaking. That's through mangrove trails, and saw incredible fish and just species of huge manta rays. We took 15 feet, 20-foot manta rays that you could just swim around. Incredible. We went scuba diving and we found see no evil, hear no evil, speak of no evil while we were there. And so that was a great occasion. And then we saw it in the statuary. Bali is very ornate, all kinds of statuary, and then architecture as well. In our hotels, they would always have courtyards and beauty going around. And this hotel cost. Typically they would cost $20, $30, no more than $50, and they would have these elaborate carvings and courtyards and just a lot of beauty. Go ahead, Julie. Why don't you tell me?
So this actually was one in Ubud, which is the cultural center of Bali, and actually this was the life-changing experience for me. This is a typical place. They always had these beautiful things. They teach tourism in the schools. And so the teenagers actually teach the parents how to have a villa or a bed and breakfast or a thing in their house. And so you have these beautiful, it's going too fast. So we had our own pool, and then you would get, there's construction everywhere in Bali, and even the women would construct.
That's an all-woman crew.
Yeah. So I wanted to tell you the thing that changed. And I have to look this way because I'm blind and I can't see that at all. So sorry about that. I think I'm going to do over here so I can see both and talk to you. Here we go. So basically, the life-changing thing that happened to me in Bali was realizing the differences. And it is all about agriculture. And This is Munduk, which is in the middle of those are the rice fields. Rice fields, one at a time. This is a farm to table, and that's the table. The food is incredible. That's ribs, all kind of things. It's basically the same 10 items everywhere you go because they're teaching it in the high school. And that was, if you go to the upper scale restaurants, they have a lot more, but basically that's your typical red snapper meal everywhere you go.
And that would be in all of Asia too. We have whole fish in Vietnam, Cambodia, Bali, and then Madagascar. And all deliciously cooked.
Thank you. Now I can see. I couldn't see the other one. All right. And so it's all about boats and all about fishing because it's an island. All the trash, everything needs to come in and come out. And one of the things that I got my life lesson, totally changed my life in Bali. Taxi driver there said, I'm just going to keep on going so you can see this. This is a typical place that you stay. And so he was saying, where are you from? We said, America. And he was saying, how is it in America? And we said, oh, we're kind of embarrassed about how our political parties are fighting right now. And, you know, it's like gangs over there. And he schooled us. He said, it is wrong for you to be embarrassed about your country. Because your country is more than your political parties. Your country is your people, your families, and your land. And when you learn that, you will rise above it all. School. And that's what we learn there. Because in these villages, this is a typical place that you stay. You don't have inside. The inside is just your bed. But your outside is a living room. And they're beautiful, overlooking beautiful gardens. And that is the day view over one of our hotels, and that's the night view. There we go. And then
The restrooms are outdoors too.
Yep.
You can shower outdoors and go to, you know, they're private, but it's like a beautiful garden outside with a restroom with a roof, but open air.
And so this is their beachside villa. This is a resort to them. This is where they live. And at first you say, ooh, it's so Spartan. But what I learned from there is you see those people in the back? They spend their entire day. There's chickens everywhere. The families spend their whole, point here. That's overlooking the water. They spend their whole day together. If the husband is a mechanic, the wife is right there. The children are interpreting for you. If they own a restaurant, the whole family's there all day. And I'm sitting there saying, you know, it looks kind of Spartan. I don't know if I'd want to live that, except that I would love to spend my entire day with my family and my children and my husband. So it kind of makes you wonder. That's what I learned. The children are helping their dads, you know, dig irrigation. This is men with a baby. This is at a restaurant. And that's their living rooms. They sit outside on those living rooms. Their house is it's like what we would use as a storage shed. That's what their house is. They cook outside and they hang out outside all day with their families and their friends.
So those platforms keep you off the ground and give you a little bit of shade, and people will rest in there. They'll talk in there. Very social culture. And people at the beach, they'll go sit under the tree while one person in the family is doing construction on a building. The rest are working. Balinese culture, these are some of the people carrying things. The men do wear more like a long skirt and a headdress. And then children at play. That's just everyday street scene right there. And roosters everywhere. Oh my goodness. I'm not a morning person. Those roosters crow all the time.
They really do. They start at like 4 in the morning.
You just got to get used to it. And
really do.
Dogs that are not chained up, getting in fights with blood-curdling noises. To get sleep takes a little practice over there. These children are selling wares, and they were just wonderful, wonderful. As Julie said, everybody works. These are woodworkers, wood carvers in a shop. And their families would be there with them. Keep on going. The rice fields are amazing. The views are amazing. Rice is, everywhere we went, rice was the central food.
Animals everywhere, dogs everywhere, the monkeys everywhere. And they will steal your food.
Yeah, Yeah, Julie would scold the greedy monkeys.
Yes.
She likes to share, everybody's sharing.
Yes, it was a big monkey that was older and he kept trying to steal and I wouldn't let him. The little monkeys get bats, iguanas, and snakes. I love snakes, I don't like iguanas. So
Yeah, lizards don't.
beautiful. There were waterfalls everywhere.
This is a bride here. Bridal photos for the rich would, are rather elaborate, even in other places. But you'll see statues like this in people's yards.
Everywhere.
You know, it's so commonplace. That's a family temple. Let's stop and talk briefly about the compound that we were on. The teenager was in charge of our Airbnb. We stayed in the Book, which is the cultural capital. The father helped manage it too, and he kind of talked with us. The grandparents would be in kind of very, almost like rags of dress, not just traditional dress, but very unostentatious dress, and they would be still throwing up the rice to separate the wheat and the chaff. So we had you know, where we could have like eggs Benedict or something fancy where we're staying in a brand new home. Then you've got a rather modest home. Then you've got a hut. But like some people back in my parents' generation had a living room that you would never go into unless you had guests, that was kind of the family showcase. That was what their temple was. And their temple was the best room on their property. And they believe in reincarnation, and their ancestors, like the grandson who ran the hospitality, was the spirit of his great-grandfather come back. This is a temple here. Keep on going. Yeah, the temple here.
Everywhere you went, every restaurant, every house had a temple.
So what I did is I got on a motorcycle one day and I went riding to go see this temple. And I stopped and start coming in, and somebody says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I've come to the temple." He said, "This is my home." and I said, "Well, it's beautiful." So he brought me in, and this is an outdoor worship area. This is a fountain that's beautiful with koi and all. And it was just his home, but he welcomed me in, introduced me to his daughter and his wife. Very, very hospitable people. This lady puts offerings around her house. This is where we stayed in the Airbnb, and that's her traditional dress. And every morning around 6, she starts putting offerings. And spiritually, it's to appease the gods.
Right. And actually, even on the floors in front of every restaurant, you'll
That's a
have
sidewalk.
That's a sidewalk, and they have them everywhere with incense. The birds and all the animals can come and eat. Even the poor people can eat the bigger ones, and that's how they kind of do equality. And you'll see that everywhere. You'll see people selling the ingredients to go in each one of these: food, rice, incense.
Or making them, yeah.
Or making them. Oh,
Dance is a huge part of their culture, and
worship.
and how you tie together religion. They dance their sacred stories, their myths. This is a group of male dancers that were doing a fire dance.
That's actually a person on fire.
No.
Actually, you'll see
Okay,
this.
but here's the dance. Listen to the chants.
Oh, I don't think we have the sound. Do we have the sound? Yep. Try that.
All done off.
Okay, we'll try that again. No? No, I guess not.
You get some
That is worship. That's how they, and lots of beautiful dances.
And so the dancers come out and interpret the stories behind this. And I'm sorry the picture's so bad, but it's taken by fire. One other place where you see the religious aspects of the society are at funerals. We're going to give you about 50 seconds of a funeral procession here.
Okay, let's see. How do I get it to start?
and very respectful, especially about the people. The voices are very calm, and what did you get out of that, Julie?
So when you ask them about the religion, they wouldn't tell you a whole lot like we can explain it all. It was more about how they interact and sacrifice and devotion every day. They can tell you the stories, but to them it was how you lived and what you were willing to sacrifice every day for your faith. And that was what, and it showed in how they related to each other. And some of the younger, we got to move on to Madagascar, the younger generation. So when we were staying in that beautiful house, the bed and breakfast, and you saw the huts right next door, that's where the older people lived. And they would have these conversations between the younger generation saying, that's not good for our guests to see that. And they're thinking, and the older generation is saying, why are you sacrificing our culture and the way that we live for money and for tourism and for other people? And so these dialogues you have every day, and it just really explains kind of where we are too, right? And so talk about life-changing, because how they interpret and how they respect each other, the devotion and the sacrifice that they go to for each other, and just to be together at all times was what lived through.
On this picture here, what it kind of did for me spiritually is, this is a tidal pool, and we had to walk down a steep hill to go to that tidal pool from our area. It was right by where you saw my son diving and other things. On your table, there's a rock or a shell for everyone in the center. That comes from that tidal pool, so you can kind of have a piece of that past. That when you think of the richness and how many billions of years that go into our earth. What I love about this area is that they preserve the country very well, and they really have a respect for one another and for the earth. And it remains a rich and vibrant place. The idea of a God that really transforms is not there, but the idea of devotion to family and a devotion to all things, a real respect for creation is very much present in Bali from our experience. It was a wonderful time and a restful time, and we went there primarily to relax and have fun. There was not other than experiencing the culture, there wasn't a missional dimension there. Madagascar is different. Let's go there now. We went to...
but I do want to say that.
Yeah.
Every time you check out of somewhere in Madagascar, they say,
That
see you next, in Bali, they say, see you next year. And we know why, because once you go to Bali, you will always want to go back. And it's just an amazing place. I don't think we'll go next year, but we will definitely be back.
So,
this is Madagascar.
The title of the grant was Rivers of Living Water, and it was very interesting when we go to Madagascar. They're in a 100-year drought. The country is being devastated. They've got a dictatorship there. Things are tough. But when we're there, that bottle is by a pump that you as Presbyterians provided, a well that you provided. And the water they drink, the languages are Malagasy and French. English is not even in the purview very much. But Ovive is water of life. That's the bottles in the French name of what they have. And basically, there's a picture of the land, and that's not uncommon. If you were to fly over the country, you would see a land that we dreamed of lush forests and all, that there's a lot of deforestation now, and it's beautiful in its dryness. But the people maintain that joy. The kids are living in grass huts with no electricity, no water, no internet, no TV, out in the middle of basically nowhere, but it's somewhere to them, and you see a real joy and a real spirit.
In the entire village, it's amazing. This is where they live. This is the poverty. And this is the Turks. This is the house that we stayed in. They are our Presbyterian PCUSA missionaries. And what they do, Dan is his name, but they call him Don Turk. When they talk about Don Turk, Don and Elizabeth Turk, it is like an angel. And that's what they believe, is these angels came to Madagascar. They've been praying for years. These angels came to Madagascar because they were in such a food insecure time. he's an agronomist, and he comes up with all kind of trees. This is what
His PhD is the horticulture of Madagascar. He lives in, their parents are here in Winter Park, Florida. He's taken, for instance, 29 species of mangoes from over here to see what's adaptable there. But he's making a way where there's no way.
And so they've started a fruit tree plantation to where everyone has access to fruit trees there, so that can be a source of income and a source of food. And so you have this beautiful fruit tree plantation. You have where they come and bring people to educate them, schools and tribal leaders, and they teach them all about agronomy and what you need. And it's just amazing. This is the staff that runs on a tiny little staff that live there. And what they found is there's a lot of barriers. You can have all these beautiful fruit trees, but if you can't get the fruit to the market, because this is the road.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. This is what you're riding on. And this is an interstate. And you see the potholes? And there's zebu everywhere. Those are their cows. And that would be a very rich. Even having one zebu is major. And so those were the barriers.
We figured we'd have about an 8-hour trip to our destination. It took 3 days of 10-hour drives because of the roads and the traffic. I mean, what we got out of there was a real richness, yeah, and our bodies slammed around.
And it was
You
exhausting.
had to have a 4-wheel drive to ride on the interstate.
And you have to have a translator because if you rent a car, they don't have the best cars. And so if you get stopped, if it doesn't work, you're stuck out in the middle of this. There's miles between this and the next village. And nobody speaks English, so we actually had to have a translator, a guide with us, and you'll see his picture later. But we got to see the beautiful landscape. Every 2 hours it changes, from savannah to. What the other barrier that they came up with is it used to be these gorgeous trees everywhere, but because there is no water there, they cannot grow these trees. They cannot keep up with their agriculture, and so what they started doing is they started tearing down their trees and selling charcoal.
Which is the last resort. You know how we own property? You might have a house or a piece of land or a farm in the country. They own a tree. And that tree they'll take down for the wood and then let it grow back, take down for wood, but then it gets desperate and you cut down your tree to live and have to sell it as charcoal.
And because that's what they cook on outside their house, is charcoal. And that's what is happening, is they are just deforesting so much that the fruit tree people in the PCUSA found real life, well, here we go. So they really understand the interdependence. And if you don't have water, then all of everything and infrastructure, everything falls apart. Because this is what the women do. They go down to whatever the nearest river is, even if it's 2 miles away, they walk together, they go bring their clothes, and then they hang them out to dry, or they just put them on the ground. And when you fly over Madagascar, when you're landing, you'll see all these colors, and you're like, what is that? When you get near, you see that it's their laundry. And so it's fishing.
And then the problem with the fishing there, those water sources like that are